Hello and welcome back to my craft room. Today is a very big day because for several weeks I've been working with 6 other arty YouTubers on a collaboration called Inspired by Fairy Stories, and today it's time for the big reveal. The idea is that each of us will create something. It can be any format, but it has to be inspired by a fairy story, any fairy story. So I'm dying to see what everybody else has come up with, because we're a broad range of styles and mediums that we like to work in, and also the whole scope of fairy stories is just massive, isn't it? So yeah, really excited to see what everyone else has got. I'm making this ahead of time so that I can sit and watch everybody else's videos when they go live. I've actually come up with 7 different projects that I want to make, so I don't know how many of them will actually come to be, but I will post one each day for the coming week. So without further ado, let's have a look at my first one. So this is, I'm going to show you first what I've ended up with, and then I'll talk about how I got there. Hopefully you can tell that this painting was inspired by The Princess on the Pea, the story. It's a story I love, I have very fond memories of. This was such a brilliant project for making me go back and revisit a lot of those old stories that I've forgotten about. I love them. I love all of the old, I like the old original ones that I remember reading as a kid, the Hans Christian Andersen and the Brothers Grimm collections. Some of them were very dark and quite disturbing, but I prefer those to the more modern kind of Disney-fied versions. So let me show you, let me go to the desk and show you where I got my inspiration from for this piece, apart from the story itself. I love some of the some of the older illustrations, the ones that were sort of early part of the 20th century. They're my favourites. This one is by Edmond Dulac. It was made in 1911 and I just love it. It's beautiful. Beautiful. I love the colours, I love the style. I have already done a video before showing some of the illustrators that I was inspired by, so I won't sort of repeat myself. So that was my inspiration, but in order to, I didn't want to just copy his composition, and I actually didn't really want this huge pillar down the middle. I wanted a slightly different composition. So in order to do it, I had to learn, at least to some extent, to do 2-point perspective. If you want to learn 2-point perspective, I thoroughly recommend Circle Line Art School. I will put a link to them in the description box. Brilliant. It just explains everything so patiently and clearly, and just, yeah, thoroughly recommended. So this is the sketch I kind of ended up with, and I've created a traceable image that you can print off and use. If you would like to use this as like a colouring page or a basis for a painting yourself, you're very welcome to use it. I'll put a link below. Yeah, that was one of the sort of scribbly versions. She's supposed to look more tired there because she hasn't slept, but I thought she just looked a bit too old as well, so that ended up changing. Here's some of the earlier versions. Here's where I thought I could make it up without learning how to do the 2-point perspective properly, and here was my first go. You can still see some of the construction lines. Yeah, a bit too exaggerated there. It's just, yeah, I spent an entire day learning how to do it and then another day doing the sketch. So the painting was the easy part. So in a minute I'm going to go on to a speeded through process, and I'll tell you about what I use and a little bit about the story of The Princess on the Pea. I did this in gouache and colour pencil. Yeah, I think that's all I've got to say. So I'll go into the process part of the video now. Thanks very much, and I will see you again at the end. Okay, so I'm all ready to get started. I've had a look at my colour wheel. I've got my and my colour scheme is going to be triadic, so I'm looking at blue, green, yellow, orange and red, violet. This is the sort of colours I've ended up with, but there'll be more muted tones of these. I'm using gouache, and then I'll probably go back in with colour pencil later. So I've got a deep permanent yellow, viridian green, a mauve pale, a Prussian blue and a vermilion red. And then I've also thrown in a burnt sienna and a flesh tint. Not that I will necessarily use that for her skin tone, but I just think it will be quite a nice way of lightening the colours without necessarily always using white. But I have got the white as well. I've got a permanent white here. I've got my 2 jars of water ready. I'm going to probably be using quite fine brushes. Let's put that out of the way now. I've got this little palette which is probably going to be too little. I probably should have had the colours squirted on a separate palette and then just mixed up in here. I don't know. We'll see how we go. And that's where I've just been sort of testing out the colours. I love the way the gouache it dries quite quickly, and it's sort of, you know, transparent a little bit like watercolour, but it's also, you can put it on quite thickly and make it more opaque like acrylic as well. And I love that it dries kind of really flat and matte. There's no sort of shine to it. I really like it, and even after it's dried you can still move it a little bit like you can with watercolour. So you do need to bear that in mind when you're layering, but that can also be quite nice. So I've got my sketch already here. So this is the one that I'm going to provide as a traceable. So you could, you know, you're very welcome to use it if you would like to. I'm working in A3, but the traceable I've done as an A4. But yeah, you probably could print it at A3 if you had a printer that big. But I figured most of us probably won't. Okay, so I'm going to shut up now and just enjoy the painting process. I've been really looking forward to this. So the story of the Princess on the Pea was first written down by Hans Christian Andersen, and it was published in 1835. Andersen was a Danish author. He was born in 1805 and spent most of his life in Copenhagen. You can still see a statue to him there, and there's also a statue of the Little Mermaid, remembering another one of the stories that he's famous for. He wrote many of the stories that we know and love today. One of our collaborators, Casper, also lives in Copenhagen, so maybe he'll pick one of Andersen's stories as his inspiration too. Some of the stories that Andersen wrote were original, as in he made them up himself. Others were just versions of stories he remembered from his childhood, and The Princess on the Pea was one of those. And in fact there are versions of it all over the world. The version I'm going to read today was translated from the Danish into English by Jan Hesholt. I'm probably saying that wrong. He was a Danish-American actor and humanitarian. So, are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. The Princess on the Pea. Once there was a prince who wanted to marry a princess, but only a real one would do. So he travelled through all the world to find her, and everywhere things went wrong. There were princesses aplenty, but how was he to know whether they were real princesses or not? There was always something not quite right about them. So he came home again, and he was unhappy because he did so want to have a real princess. One evening a terrible storm blew up. It lightened and thundered and rained. It was really frightful. In the midst of it all came knocking at the town gate. The old king went to open it. Who should be standing outside but a princess, and what a sight she was in all that rain and wind. Water streamed from her hair, down her clothes and into her shoes, and ran out again at the heels. Yet she claimed to be a real princess. We'll soon find out about that, the old queen thought to herself. Without saying a word about it, she went to the bedchamber, stripped back the bedclothes, and put just 1 pea in the bottom of the bed. Then she took 20 mattresses and piled them on the pea. Then she took 20 eider-down feather beds and piled them on the mattresses. Up on top of all of these, the princess was to spend the night. In the morning they asked her, "Did you sleep well?" "Oh," said the princess, "no, I scarcely slept at all. Heaven knows what's in that bed. I lay on something so hard that I'm black and blue all over. It was simply terrible." Then they could see that she was a real princess, and no question about it. Now that she had felt 1 pea all the way through 20 mattresses and 20 more feather beds, nobody but a princess could be so delicate. So the prince made haste to marry her, because now he knew he had found a real princess. As for the pea, they put it in the museum. There it is, still to be seen, unless somebody has stolen it. There, that's a true story. That's a shorter version than I seem to remember. But yeah, you get the gist of it. And interestingly, there are lots of different versions of that all over the world. And it seems to come from this idea that somehow women from the nobility would be more sensitive. Well, maybe it's actually true. I think all the poor women would have been far too busy and exhausted to not be able to sleep because there was a pea under their mattress. They'd have gone out like a light and probably eaten the pea. Anyway, that's the end of the story for today, so I'm just going to play you some music now while I finish the painting. Right, I think I'm done with my painting now, so I'm going to leave this to dry and then I'm going to come back in and go on with my coloured pencils. I've kept this here for inspiration. You can see my my colours are a lot more, a lot brighter and lighter. But yeah, I still like the way it's looking and the way it's going, and this has still been good to use for inspiration. So yeah, I like the way there's kind of a warm brown colour outlining most of these shapes. I really like that look. I did a bit of a glaze with the quinacridone gold to get some of that kind of warmth into it, and I still might go back and do a bit more of that. I might also even use a bit of gold pen as well, and I might need to add a little bit more paint yet as well, but we'll see. So yeah, I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to go off and have a little break because this has been taking me quite a while, and then I'll come back and finish off. I'm really enjoying myself. Right, I'm ready to go in with my colour pencils now. I've got a black, a sepia, a Tuscan red, which is really dark, an indigo kind of blue, a warm grey and a white, and then a very pale kind of yellow cream. So they're my sort of neutrals, and then I've pulled out some of the colours as well because I might want to intensify those a bit. So I've got a couple of shades of green, a couple of shades of the sort of blue-green kind of turquoisey colours, 3 shades of yellow. I mean, that's kind of, I suppose it's more of a pale green than a yellow, then a brighter yellow and a kind of ochre, and a really sort of warm, soft, orangey yellow, and then I've got a magenta and a red. What kind of red is that? Raspberry, it says. And these are a mixture of Artful, Posca, Prismacolor, and what was a Derwent Lightfast there. I think that's it. Okay, so I'm going to get stuck into this. I think in some ways this is the bit I'm looking forward to the most. I'm going to put something on YouTube, binge watch a bit of something, and just doodle away. I'll probably start by outlining everything, I think. Okay, see you at the other end. So there we go, there's a closer look at the finished painting. I'm very happy with how it turned out. I learnt a lot from certainly about drawing two-point perspective, and I just, once I got to the painting part, I really enjoyed myself. Do feel free to use that traceable if you would like. I will remember to leave a link in the description box below if you'd like to recreate this. If you do that, or you're inspired by any of the other pieces in our collaboration, do please use the hashtag so that we can see what you've done and have a look and comment. So it's going to be hashtag inspired by fairy stories. I had a look, and the inspired by fairy tales had already been used, so please make sure it's hashtag inspired by fairy stories, and then we can find you. Also, there's the ArtyFartyAnnie Facebook page. You're very welcome to post pictures on there of anything you've created inspired by this project. And remember, if you do that, you'll need to click on the community tab on the page in order to see what other people have posted other than me. Otherwise you'll only see what I've posted myself. Yep, I think that's all I've got to say. I'm itching to see what everyone else comes up with for this. I'm recording this well ahead of time so that I've at least got this one under my belt. So I don't know at this stage how many other projects I will have got finished. But over the next few days, after the 31st of July, I'll post any other projects that I've managed to finish or even get started on. So yeah, as you can tell, I'm a little bit overexcited about the whole thing. Oh, if I haven't already said it, of course, I will leave links to all the other collaborators in the description box below. Please do go and check them out. They're just amazing. I just know that they're going to be an absolute inspiration. I think that's all I need to say. Okay, thank you very much for joining me today, and I will see you again really soon. Bye. Overexcited.